Also part of President Trump's new national order on immigration policy, let's turn to New York's status as a sanctuary city, because President Trump signed a different executive order this week saying that he would halt funding to municipalities across the country that do not cooperate with federal immigration officials and enforce federal immigration law. You've threatened to sue in response to the order. I guess the question is, if your lawsuit fails, would New York City be willing to give up tens of millions of dollars in federal funding in order to maintain its status as a sanctuary city?
A couple of quick points. The sanctuary city definition has been often misunderstood. It's simple. Number one reason we have a different approach to immigrants in this city. We have 500,000 people here who are undocumented, and our police department has felt for decades that it must have a working relationship with those folks, and if they feel that by talking to a police officer could lead to the information being shared with the federal government and deportation, people are not going to work with police. This is a policy that goes back to Rudy Giuliani and Ed Koch, 20, 30 years back. We believe it's the best way to keep our city safe. We're the safest big city in America, and we've been working with our immigrant communities to make ourselves safe. We also believe the executive order is very vague and filled with contradiction and legally challengeable. So, Jake, rule one, we're going at this. If there is an attempt to implement, of course there has not been an attempt to implement yet, we will go to court to have it stayed, just like this more recent executive order was stayed. The specific funding that would be cut, here's the irony, Jake, the specific funding would be cut would be from Homeland Security and Justice. That's for the NYPD to fight terrorism. So what President Trump is saying is he's going to take away anti-terrorism dollars from New York City, the #1 terror target in America, while alienating our police from our immigrant communities, making us less safe overall. We're not going to stand for that.
Under a new sanctuary city law that you approved in October 2014, the city of New York shields from the feds undocumented immigrants who commit what are deemed to be lesser offenses, but they include drunk driving and grand larceny. Why shouldn't the city of New York comply with federal law in this area? If you're a drunk driver and you're an undocumented immigrant, why should there be a place for you in this country?
Jake, there are 170 offenses in that law that are listed as serious and violent crimes that lead to automatic cooperation between the city of New York and our federal partners. So any serious and violent crime, we're going to work with them. Someone commits a minor offense. For example, right now, if you didn't have clear definitions like we have, let's say someone had a small amount of marijuana, let's say someone went through a stop sign, they could be deported for that, and their family could be torn apart, and you could have children left behind where the breadwinner in the family is sent back to a home country. That is not good for anyone. So we differentiate. Anyone who's violent, anyone who's a serious threat to society, we agree, we'll work with the federal partners, and they get deported. But we are not going to see, with 500,000 undocumented people here, this would be true for 11 to 12 million undocumented folks in this country, the vast majority of whom are law-abiding, we're not going to see families torn apart over a very minor offense.
But is grand larceny or drunk driving a very minor offense?
Drunk driving that does not lead to any other negative outcome, I could define as that. But look at the list of 170 offenses, anything involving a weapon, anything involving violence. Those are the areas where we're absolutely cooperating. And that, I think, could be a good model, Jake, for how we proceed as a nation. Anyone who does a serious crime, I agree, they shouldn't be here. But the vast majority of people don't commit any crime, and some, like so much of our population, do some small offense. That's not a reason to tear apart a family. That's not going to do any good. And listen, if, again, think about this, 11 to 12 million Americans, if they start feeling like they cannot talk to a police officer, cannot say if they've been a victim of a crime, they can't go to a police officer to tell them they witnessed a crime, they can't talk to people at a public hospital or a school for fear of deportation, that's going to be corrosive in communities all across the country. It's actually going to make us less safe day to day in our communities. That's why it's taking us in the wrong direction.